I'm Jane Applegath. This is the Epic Vision Zone. What if you knew the secret to building instant online authority? And what if I told you one social media platform could increase your business growth? And what if there was a digital magnet that attracted your ideal client? Maya Angelou wrote, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Nina Froriep is an award-winning producer and documentary filmmaker. As a visual storyteller and producer, she has been involved in independent features, national TV commercials, Emmy award-winning documentaries, including one she produced herself and directed, and much more. Today, Nina is a featured LinkedIn content creator and video marketer. Her company, Clockwise Productions, empowers executives, coaches, authors, and visual artists to create first-class digital content on LinkedIn. Nina's goal is to help her clients attract their ideal customers by turning their expertise into engaging content to grow their business using LinkedIn. Her trademark, make LinkedIn video creation easier and more engaging by embracing your video personality. A landscape photographer, Nina enjoys spending time outside with her Dachshund Yorkie mix Tigger. Welcome, Nina. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we were just chatting a little bit beforehand, and as I was saying to Nina, I can't wait to delve into this, especially with her background, because this is such an interesting forte for her to step into. And LinkedIn, as many of us know, is the platform for business connection. So give us your background, like I said, is fascinating. So what inspired you to use your production and storytelling skills to become a LinkedIn content creator?
I don't know whether inspired is the right word. It basically was a necessity. I've run my business for over 30 years, and 2000, what was it, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. Anybody with a smartphone in their back pocket was creating video, not good video, but they were creating video. And clients were just not willing anymore to spend good money on beautiful and well produced content for their websites or for their training purposes, etc. So I felt like I could, I was about to turn 50, and I felt that either I was going to just sort of hobble along for another 15 or so years, or was going to reinvent myself. And me being me, I rolled up my sleeves and said, okay, reinvention it is. And I took a gazillion and two detours, but LinkedIn very quickly just emerged as a really good place to be seen and heard if you knew what you were doing. And with my video background, I love creating. I'm very creative in general. It was a really good match.
Right. It sounds like a perfect match. And the pivot, yes, I mean, we've all been there, done
Yeah.
that, and we continue to pivot. I mean, that's life, right? It's all about growing and learning. Now, you did mention that LinkedIn has been known to be one of the leading social media platforms. Can you give us a little bit more insight into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, LinkedIn, and again, LinkedIn works and lives within the context of all the other social media platforms that are out there. So, LinkedIn, first of all, is very linear, which I personally love. A lot of small business owners and coaches I find have, for instance, ADHD. So, having a social media platform that doesn't have too many distractions is actually a good thing. And then I just find that the conversations on LinkedIn are business focused. That's not to say that you cannot have a personal conversation on there too, but we all know why we are there. We're there to grow our businesses. We're there to establish our expertise, our authority, our thought leadership. And I always find that when you are on Facebook, for instance, there's sort of this, am I here to check out on my grandma, on my, well, the kids are not on it, so I'm not checking on my nephew, but, am I checking out friends and family, or am I there for business? It's sort of, you never know what headspace you're meeting people at or in when you encounter them on Facebook. And Facebook is just so huge, that it's much harder to stand out with organic content creation, than an inbound marketing, than it is on LinkedIn. And then not all of us, or none of us, want to show up, dancing and doing, silly little memes, like you have to do on TikTok, or not everybody is super visual, especially in the business world. Instagram, same problem as Facebook: too many people, too much to look at, and it's just innately completely visual. So not everybody's cup of tea.
Right. Yes. No, I appreciate that explanation because you're right. There is a platform for everyone, depending on what they're looking for. And I do agree. It's interesting that you mentioned Facebook because it is now, in my viewpoint, antiquated. It's
Mhm.
almost like, I never was on Facebook when it came out. So I wasn't, my first social media encounter was with Instagram. So I love it. I know how to work it. I go on Facebook and it's so confusing to me. And there's so much stuff on there. And you're right, it's more personal. It's,
Yeah.
people chatting and getting to know each other. And then, of course, there's TikTok, which all the younger generation tends to be on because they, like you said, they're doing memes. There are a lot of big names on TikTok as well, but I think they're on there because that's the place to be, no other reason. But yes, LinkedIn is definitely and always has been the focus of business.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. And you're here to give us all the strategy and the insight into how to make that work. So in that sense, can you give us three must-haves to create the most effective messaging for your target audience on LinkedIn?
Oof. Three. Okay. So, I mean, everything always depends on who you are, what you do, for whom, and why. Um, but if I had to sort of summarize it, I would say, the single most important thing on LinkedIn is consistency. So when I do these workshops, I always say, like, what is more efficient on LinkedIn? Posting 5 times a week, whenever your fancy strikes, and you come up with a great idea, or once a week, every week on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. And the answer always surprises everybody because it's the second one. Posting once a week at the same day, at the same time. The way the algorithm works on LinkedIn is that it gets trained to look for your content at a certain time on a certain day. And if it knows that you always post 9 a.m. on Eastern on Tuesdays, it will go and look for your content if it has learned that your content actually gets engagement. So consistency is number one. So more important than anything else is to show up regularly. I'd rather have you show up less, but regularly. So I think that's number one. Number two is, of the very few people who actually do post on LinkedIn, I think there's a staggering number of I forget, I think it's like only 10% of LinkedIn users are actually posting. So if you're one of those 10%, and you can harness video, or even better, LinkedIn Lives, you will so stand out above everybody else that it really helps you be seen by people that otherwise you would not be seen. So embracing video and live. I mean, lives are just, shoot you out of the water. It's unbelievable. It's like an 84 time more chance of engagement, not chance, but engagement, if you're creating LinkedIn Lives. And then thirdly, there's the much overused word authenticity. It's way too exhausting to be somebody else. So be yourself, and find a way to, you know, yes, you want to be professional. You want to show up as how you want your clients to see you, and how you show up for your clients. But you also want to do it with a good portion of personality, humility, approachableness, if that's a word. So make sure that you're not just you don't want to be too stiff, but you also don't want to be too casual. So sort of finding that voice. And I think that's also, you mentioned it in the introduction, we created the video personality quiz
Mm.
uh, as a small, it's a small tool, but it actually shifts sometimes just ever so slightly. It's that pivotal shift that some people need to be able to recognize how they show up best, and to embrace that. And that's not just video, it's everything. But on video, we're seeing you right as you are.
Right.
um, and I always tell people, show up the way you would show up on a Zoom call.
Mm.
So if that is, and because then people like for me, the biggest compliment is if somebody gets on the call with me and says, "Oh my God, you're just like your videos on LinkedIn." I'm like, boom, mission accomplished, right?
Right, right. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're right. Visual and video, because a still picture or a still, whatever. If you write something on LinkedIn, it's much more engaging, and they will stop and listen. Because it
Mm.
is more unusual on LinkedIn to have video. And I do appreciate the fact that you said that you have this mini quiz that says your video personality. I love that, and I believe
Yeah.
that's anybody can click on that. Is that correct on your site? Yes, that's
Yeah.
fabulous. We'll have that in the bio pages, because that does make a difference. And
Mm.
it's all about honing your skills. You and
Yeah.
I know that we've been in this filming business. But you're right, when you show up on camera, it's a little frightening at first. I don't know about you, but
Mhm.
I was always behind the camera. And when I first
Yes.
started coming in front of the camera, I was like, I can't do that. But with
Yeah.
practice and with skill, et cetera, we all become more comfortable. And therein lies the authenticity, right?
Yeah.
The more you practice, the more authentic you become, the more comfortable you become. So I love that. And Nina is absolutely fabulous, may I say, at instructing people to become their authentic self on camera, because it does take practice. It really does.
It does. Yeah.
So, yeah, it does. So, your expertise, you say that it is organic marketing. Now, you touched a little bit on this at the beginning, but can you tell us more about what that actually means, organic marketing?
It basically, in a nutshell, means that you're focusing on inbound marketing, which is another term. So basically, you are creating your content um, for the audience to find you and engage with you, rather than buying advertising time, creating ads, be it video or written or carousels or whatever. So the inbound marketing tactic is just like, I put out really awesome content that shows off who I am, what I do, for whom and why. And it also, might give some good tips. It might have some lead magnets attached to it so people can download something in return for their email. And I am solely getting my clients through that kind of mechanism. So I'm not engaging in advertising. I'm not engaging what I tend to call bro marketing tactics.
Mm.
I cannot tell you how many people I talk to, professionals. I work with service providers nearly exclusively, who are spending thousands of dollars a month on Google ads or on Facebook ads and see zero return, but they don't know what else to do. So they just
Mhm.
keep pouring the money in, and it's like the spray and pray principle. I'm like, if you would stop for a moment, think about a strategy of how you can put out good content that talks about what you do for your clients, and then do a strategy around putting out that kind of content on a regular basis on your LinkedIn profile, you're going to have a better chance and much higher return on investment with that kind of tactic, which again we call organic. So organic just means we're growing naturally. We're not paying for
Mm.
advertising. That's sort of the bottom line.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, it's more authentic, because an ad is an ad, right? Yeah.
An ad, an ad. I mean, an ad can be, some ads are really fun and well made. I don't
Mhm.
want to discount that, but I think for us, small to medium size, business coaches, consultants, author speakers. I work with a couple of visual artists just because I'm also a photographer. So, I have access to that crowd. We don't have the thousands of dollars to spend on advertising. And when you work with these advertising companies, they tell you, yeah, 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 whatever you want to hear. And then you're strapped in with them. And then it's like, oh, we need another $500 here. We need another
Mm,
$1,000 here. And by the way, we need 10 different versions of this video. Who has time to create 10
yeah.
different versions of a video? Even for somebody like me who knows how to create a video fast and efficiently. And then, it might not, it might not, and that is sort of the gal of it all. They then run it on Facebook. I'm like, I'm on LinkedIn. I want to attract LinkedIn people. I'm like, oh yeah, but LinkedIn, the pay-per-click is way too high. And it's not very transparent industry. It's not a very, I think if you're a
Mm,
huge company, you have lots of money to spend and you have a team reiterating, a video 1,000 times over with different colors and fonts. I'm like, I don't care whether the font is yellow, blue, or orange, right? And I don't have time to worry about that. I'm working with my clients. That's how I want to spend my time. So,
right.
you know,
Yes, absolutely. And what I felt there, Nina, was you help your clients build connection. And therein lies the huge difference because today's world, we are all looking for connection, young and old.
yeah.
The young are going to other ways of that's why they're on social media. They're connecting in their way, but we are all looking for connection. And the connection happens when you see that person, when you feel that person, when you have a rapport with that person. And that's what you're building. It's the art of connection. And, in today's world, that is paramount because that is something AI cannot do, the human connection. It can
Mhm.
certainly help us on a level of creation and give us some great ideas. But you
Creation
put
is great.
a yes, exactly. But you put an AI up there, and they sound like a computer. And, there's no connection, and there's no personality. But absolutely, I love that. Well, you just kind of segued into my question because I was going to say, how do you make video differently at Clockwise Productions? So maybe this gets into more technical. I'm not sure, but is there something there that you want to add that makes you so unique in the industry?
Um, how unique it is, I don't know. But I always tell people, if you come to us and you're looking for tips on the latest camera, lenses, lights, microphones, please go somewhere else.
Mm,
That it's because that's not important. What is important, that you look decent, right? You're well framed, and your computer, your laptop, your iPhone or smartphone, all have amazing microphones built in nowadays, have beautiful cameras built in. So really, what I want you to focus on is your strategy, your content. How are you going to elevate your conversation to attract the people you want to attract, and how you can create a solid system around creating your videos or your LinkedIn lives such that it doesn't take up your entire life and
mm,
becomes a huge burden. So my focus is really on the sort of the strategy, content, and creation aspect, in terms of making sure that you really are putting out your best brain, so to speak, and your personality. So to me, much more important to work with you on your on-camera performance, on, as you said earlier, making you feel comfortable on camera. The technical aspects are just a tool to a means and nothing more.
right. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can go anywhere for that information, but
Yeah.
what you do is an art. It's a skill that you've learned over many years, but it then becomes an art because that is something that you and I discussed a little earlier. We do have a lot of issues when we come in front of the camera. And in fact, I'm really curious then, is there something that you could provide to our audience, that how you coach clients to overcome their on camera performance, their fear of being on camera, especially if they're camera shy?
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's exercises you can do, obviously, which I think it goes beyond what we're discussing here. But a first step, which I find to be extremely helpful, is especially if you are, like you and I are, we're working with our clients online. I'm assuming you're working with your clients for the most part online, if not 100%. So that means we are on Zoom pretty much all day long, or whenever we're working with our clients. Creating those videos is no different than being on
Mm.
Zoom. And so what I sometimes do, and again, my documentary background, kicks in when I'm like, "Ooh, I get to interview somebody." So what I'll do is I'll be like, "Okay, if get going on camera is super nerve wracking, let's just get on a Zoom together, and I interview you, and then we just use your answers as sort of a first defense or a first line of videos, just to get you out there." Um, and and then there are in a familiar environment. There's no stressor, as in, oh my god, I need to like have a little desktop tripod, and I need to strap in my camera, and I need to, Nina told me to frame myself this and this and this way, and what is all the checklist. And by the time you get to your script, you're all nerves and you forget what you were going to say. And of course, I don't allow cheat sheets or teleprompters, because that counters that, being authentic on camera. So practice, and I think, and then it's just practice. So if people enter my Connect and Convert video program, I just have them create videos like every week. And just if it's one, I mean, I always tell them do a few, but if it's just one, and then by doing and doing and doing it, sort of that repetition takes away the nerves. And I always tell them, like, if the video's shit, we're not putting it anywhere. It's just between you and me, So, and maybe by the fourth or fifth or sixth video, now we're like, this is pretty good. Like, it's also getting used to your voice, getting used to your likeness. I mean, I remember we talked about this earlier. I had a career safely tucked behind the camera for decades. I was a producer, I was a director. And when I started realizing that I needed to create video for myself to promote my business, it was awful. It was so awful. I spent an entire day shooting one video that I bought myself a teleprompter. I bought myself an external monitor because that's all I knew, right? I had always worked on these big productions, or relatively big productions. So I just mimicked what I had learned in my decades of being a documentary and corporate film producer. So the video was unusable. I ran to the corner store, got my first facial ever in my life. I was so freaked out. I actually bought a 10-pack. Must admit, I bought a 10-pack. Didn't help, obviously, with my video creation, but it was just sort of that gut reaction of, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too, not talented enough. I can't get a script out. Um, and then once I learned, I was angry or really upset about something, and I did a quick video in reaction, just sitting at my desk, and I put that online, and people were like, "Wow." I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And that's when I realized, like, we don't have Stephanie now who's like, like this in front of the, deer lights, deer with the lights. What is it called? Lights, caught
A
in the
deer in the
headlight.
headlights. Yeah.
Yes, that's the expression I'm looking for. But it was just me, at my desk, just ranting about something. And that's why that was a big click for me, where like, okay, this is what people are looking for, right? They yes, I want to look professional. I don't want to show up in a, some people confuse authenticity with being cool, right? Oh, here are my little thingamatics. And I had this one friend, she showed up in a wife beater, lying in bed. She put a video out, and like, oh my God, like, that's not authentic. That's just unprofessional and a no. So again, as I say, show up as you would show up for your clients, right?
Right. Right. Well, depending on what type of business she was in, who knows? Maybe she was showing
Not
up for
that
a
kind of
client.
business. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fine if you're going jogging and you want to do a little
Yeah.
blur, but you do that once or twice a year. You don't do that. That
Yeah.
is not, again, it's sort of learning, and that's a whole other level then of teaching my clients, like, okay, how are we now feeling comfortable to bring in personal elements into our LinkedIn personality, without making it icky, but making it such that people find us relatable, right? And that's
Right.
to some people it comes natural, and to some people they need some guidance.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you for those insights because they were really good. And I can so appreciate the camera, and you're right, it is practice, because with practice you gain the confidence. But
Mhm.
it's putting that first step forward. It's all about moving outside of your comfort zone. Like you and I, we were comfortable behind the camera, but
Mhm.
when we move, that's outside of our comfort zone. It's like, oh no, what are we, like you said, stiff as a board, because
Yeah.
I want it to be perfect, and that's not
Yeah.
authentic. And then you look like a robot basically, because you're there stiff as a
Probably an
board. But right,
AI.
exactly. There you go. You are AI.
Uh,
But well, thank you for that insight. And now I read something here. How do you share your personal stuff on social media hassle free? Like you just mentioned that one client.
mhm.
But there is a thing about having no issues with posting some personal stuff. Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, I mean, and I learned this from somebody else, and I stole it, as you know, all good ideas are stolen one way or the other, I think. But this guy was talking about picking 5 things that you feel comfortable sharing, or like other people have said, like, would your mother approve of this? I think that's another a good way of thinking of it as well. But with my clients, I go through the exercise where I say, let's pick 5 things that are you privately, that are get, allow people to get to know you on a level beyond just I'm the authority on XYZ. But they don't give away, like some people. I have one client, he loves sharing his 3 young boys. I personally,
Mm,
I don't have children, but I would never do that, right?
mm,
And I know
mm.
people who don't do that. But he's comfortable with it. He's also younger generation, so there is a different understanding of sharing personal information. But it could be, a hobby. It could be, like in my case, it's like I have a dog. I share Tigger all the time. He's a tiny little cute thing. And I share that I, flip flop back and forth between my native Switzerland and New York. And I'm a landscape photographer, and I'm a citizen pruner. Those are a couple of things that I talk about. They're harmless, and yet they are distinct and different and make me memorable. And I can talk about them without giving away anything about my private life that I don't care talking about.
Right. Ah, okay. Yes. Great, great tip, because you do want to connect with people. And
Mhm.
that connection comes from letting them know something about you that's not just about the business.
I think
So,
it's really
yes.
important. Yeah, yeah. And am I alienating all the cat moms out there? No, probably not. And I mean, sometimes people are like, "Ooh, should I talk about the fact that I'm a wine connoisseur?" I'm like, sure. I mean, I think that's harmless enough. Are there going to be people out there who don't drink wine or don't drink alcohol? Sure, but it's not like I'm showing up drunk on my videos, or you know, again, would your mother approve of you talking about it online? If yes, then I think it's probably really safe. So, or your love for baking, or it could be a whole myriad of different things. And some of them could also be visual. If you like, with my landscape photography, every other month or so, I'll put in my link to my portfolio and some beautiful pictures I took. And it just gives, yeah, it gives a more layered dimension to who I am than it would be if I just always talked about LinkedIn and video and LinkedIn lives.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I really do. And I appreciate that, because I have seen that many times. And like you said, it's all about people getting to know who you really are behind the business. And
Yeah.
that's connection again, because maybe they have a dog as well, or a cat, or a pet. It doesn't matter. Or they also have a photography, a passion for photography, that sort of thing. So absolutely. I love that. So tell our audience about your free quarterly content planning sessions. I
Yeah.
think you've
So
got one coming up, don't you? Sorry, I think you.
coming up. Yeah. When is this airing? I should have asked that before. Yeah, so I have one coming up. They do come up regularly. The next one is February 19. And so what it is, it's one element out of a membership that I have that is super popular. So I run what's called the leg. We give you a leg up on LinkedIn, and the leg stands for LinkedIn Engagement Group. So it's a membership where we help people with consistent. As I said, one of the three most important things on LinkedIn is the consistency part. So it helps people wrap their brain around what to post, how to post, be consistent with it. It holds them accountable within a group, which is also inspirational, etc. And what we do is a quarterly LinkedIn planning session where for 2 hours, and the freebie workshop is a little less than 2 hours, I think it's 75 minutes, where we basically just look at our calendars about a quarter or 3 to 4 months out and look at what are the big events in our lives that we want to plan content for. Because I cannot tell you how often it happens. Several things. Number one, people are like, "Ooh, I've got this big course I'm launching next week. Ooh, I should put something on LinkedIn." It's like that's way too late. If it's a bigger thing, then you want to talk about it 6 weeks in advance, which means you want to create the content for what you're going to be posting, maybe 8 weeks in advance, right? So there's just this ramp up time that you need, and if you're not planning in advance, you will always miss those deadlines. So that's the one thing. And then there's people who just consistently write their content the morning of. And
Mm.
that leads to what I call a lot of banging your head against the wall, because what if inspiration doesn't strike? What if you forget what that there's this, that, and the other you need to talk about? It just doesn't lead to a strategic way of creating your content such that it supports your business and your business growth and you connecting with aligned clients that you want to have in your ecosystem. So planning out quarterly, it's just the planning. I find that people sometimes collapse the planning and the creating and the posting all into one big mess. It's three
Mm.
very distinct different steps. And the planning is just basically a what's happening in my life in the next 3 months. When do I want to talk about it? How do I want to talk about it? And then looking at anchor content, like you, Jane, have this vlogcast. It's a regular thing. So I know that every Wednesday or every other week, an episode comes out. So I want to talk about it, announce it. I want to actually have the episode. And maybe I'll do a post thing with a little sound bite.
Right.
That's an anchor content. And then I fill in my content around that. And it just allows you to not miss out great opportunities, have no freakouts over when you're going to talk about what, to whom, and why. And I think it just gives you a lot of freedom to then be much more creative. And because some people are like, "Ooh, planning up front, that stifles my creativity," and I'm like, no, it's actually the other way around. It allows for creativity because now you've got your anchors and your framework in place, and now you can be super creative within that and create super awesome content.
Yes. It gives you, once you've got it planned, then it gives you the space to be
Yeah,
more creative, because otherwise what I say, it's static, that
yeah,
it's in the back, it's almost it's your computer program working in the back thinking, oh, I've got to post something next tomorrow, I've got to post something next week, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know what I'm going to say, and da 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 da
hmm,
da. And all that static is, you could, if you had it planned already, you could be using that time to be creative, because that
exactly.
interferes with your energy, it interferes with your flow. I mean, that's what flow is all about, is being in your zone. But you can't be in your zone if you've got all these things on your mind. But absolutely,
Yeah,
yes, planning, strategically planning is key to, having, like you said, space to create. So I
yeah.
love that, I love that. So Nina, if there was one message that you could share with the world, what would it be?
Oh God. Uh,
Or several.
yeah, that's a tall order. Ay, 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 ay. Well, I mean, two things come to mind. Number one, overarching is, and philosophically maybe, you're the only person who can make yourself happy. Happiness lies within, right? And no one's going to come and rescue you. That was sort of an epiphany I had a couple of years ago. What, the prince in shining armor is not going to show up and rescue me. So no. So that's maybe not to the point of LinkedIn and social media content creation. And I think the other one is equally as maybe overarching philosophical, but I do hammer it home with my clients on LinkedIn, which is, in life, it's all about that consistency factor.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people run the other way when they hear consistency because it smacks of commitment or of have to. But for me, consistency is something that speaks to routine and systems that again then free me up to be super creative. And I think that is, you were just talking about the flow, right? If I can put my to do things into a neat little system that frees me up to not have to think about it all the time, then that is time gained, and time gained to play or to be creative or to be innovative or disrupt something really awesome in my industry that needs reinvention. It just allows for so much freedom to be creative.
Absolutely. Yes. And I do love your first point as well, because, yeah, let's face it, as business people and as human beings, your energy says everything about who you really are. And if you're not happy for whatever reason, you're talking about authenticity, somewhere in there, that authenticity, that that feeling is going to come through, so it's all, like you said, it's about being happy with who you are and what you're doing. And that's a tall order, in our days, because you and I are probably around the same, vintage, as I call it. But they didn't teach these things. It was like,
Oh,
you get a job, you keep the job, do your thing, get the mortgage, buy the house, have the children, have the family, and then you retire, after
yeah,
you've worked your butt off doing something you didn't love for entirety of your life, so you can have, what, 10 years to enjoy life. I mean, it's like, really?
yeah,
But
yeah,
so now we're much smarter.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I did want to make the point that all of these things that you are mentioning, you can also repurpose those for some of your other platforms if you have them. Like, you're talking about video, and you're talking about content, and you're talking about your planning and your strategic, you know um, foresight to put things out there. Those can also be used for example, I do a lot on Instagram. You can use it for that. Or if you're using Facebook or TikTok, you can use snippets of those or all of those for those as well. So it's not, your forte is LinkedIn, but also keep in mind that you can use all of this and all of Nina's knowledge and planning for everything else you're doing. So,
absolutely. And we do that too. We just focus. I think that especially with the engagement part, you want to focus on one platform and do it really, really well.
right.
But yeah, we definitely cross pollinate, and we have a very solid like LinkedIn and email strategy. Those are our
Mm,
two main platforms. And yes, everything goes on YouTube, for instance, and Instagram not so much because of the formatting. But again, choose your platforms, and if you have several and you do well on them, I just would say be honest about. I have quite a few clients who are now finally just letting go of Instagram and Facebook because the return on investment is just not there anymore. And
mm,
then they drop
yes.
focus on one platform, which now happens to be LinkedIn. But it can still be like YouTube is a great platform, even
Yes.
Vimeo to a certain degree, if you especially if you're doing, obviously if you're doing video. So and newsletters are coming up again. So there's many ways to repurpose and use your content. And even a video can become a transcript, can become a carousel, can become a visual quote card. Yeah, you can go
Yeah.
with the sky's the limit.
Right, absolutely. And with your expertise, you have that ability to say, look, if you want to
Mhm.
do this, this is what we can do. because you
Yeah.
go beyond, because of your background, you go beyond the LinkedIn, with what you were just saying, all those options that you have. So how can people discover more about your services, Nina, and books or resources? Give them an idea. And all of these will be on the bio pages on the Epic Vision Zone too.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I think the easiest and best way to get a hold of me is actually on my LinkedIn profile. I'm the only Nina Froriep out there, because I do as I teach, I do as I show my clients to do their content. So we post very regularly, 3 times a week. And I talk about a lot about what I do in my posts. So there's sort of watching it live, so to speak. And then there's my website, clockwiseproductions.com, which is also a great resource, just to maybe if you want to read a little deeper and get everything in one place. That's a great place to go.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and like I said, we'll have those available. And because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, Nina, I have one last question for you. If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
What would the title be? She never stopped learning, or always curious, or something to that effect. Yeah, maybe not
Okay.
the sexiest title, but that's what I can come up with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it stumps a lot of people, but it's I'm always curious because and
Yeah,
some come up with some incredible titles. So it's really, I
sure.
love to get people thinking outside the box,
Yeah,
to
that's
get
great.
them from a creative point of view. So again, thank you, Nina, for joining us here today. And once again, for information and to connect with Nina, go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages, where you will find all of her social media and direct contact information. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. And don't forget to contact me at janeapplegath.com, where you can download your free access to Creative Power and Vision Play Sheet. Sending you much love and gratitude. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.